Welcome to Child Rights Art Education Series with Olakunle Sanni. Thank you for joining me again. On today's edition, we'll be looking at section 32 of the Child Rights Act, still under the part 3, which covers the protection of the rights of the child. Section 32 reads Forms of sexual abuse and exploitation. Forms of sexual abuse and exploitation. Subsection 1 says a person who sexually abuses or sexually exploits a child in any manner not already mentioned under this part of this act commits an offense. Then subsection 2 goes further to say a person who commits an offense section under subsection 1 of this section is liable on conviction to imprisonment for a term of 14 years. So this section 32 and the following subsections majorly focus on other forms of sexual abuse and exploitation. If you can recollect, the last time we talked about Section 31 majorly talked about intercourse, having sexual intercourse with a child, and which has to do with what we call defilement or maybe child rape or something, raping a child. But more specifically, it is better described as defilement. That's what that Section 31 talked about, and it has also some kind of life punishment, life imprisonment for offenders. But Section 32 now goes further to also talk about those sexual abuse and exploitation which are not categorically mentioned in in Section 31. That even though with the Section 31 talks about intercourse, there are other forms of sexual abuse which also or sexual exploitation which also happen to the child. For example, we can be talking about kissing a child, we can be talking about sexting a child, that is sending messages that have sexual content, or maybe touching the child indecently, maybe sometimes when you are fondling the breast of the child, or maybe even practicing incest with the child, or maybe putting the child into early or forced marriage, or using the child for pornographic content, which also um, amounts to sexual exploitation, or maybe sometime for sexual slavery, using the child for sexual slavery. So all these things are not categorically mentioned in in this section 31, but all this also amount to sexual abuse. So because section 31 majorly talk about sexual intercourse, but there are also other forms of sexual abuse, like when somebody touches the vagina of a girl, or touches the penis, or masturbate the penis of a boy. It also amounts to sexual abuse. Or when somebody uses a child in brothel to work as a sex worker rather, then it's also a form of sexual abuse. Or maybe somebody assists somebody else to engage a child in sex. Yes, while the person who engaged the child in sexual intercourse has committed an offense, which is life imprisonment if found guilty. But it's also saying that that person who assists that person, maybe by being the middleman or the middle woman who played that role, and then maybe for his or her own self gratification, then he or she engage in such acts, then that person could also be guilty of sexual exploitation. And there's also the part of grooming, which we also, when people groom the child sexually, and then to in preparation for the child before the actual act. When I say the actual act, I mean sexual penetrate. That means engaging the child in penetrative sex. So looking at this, the subsection 1 of this is saying that anything that are not being mentioned which also amount to sexual abuse, or when somebody sexually exploits a child in any manner, which may not already be have been mentioned in section 31, also amount to sexual abuse. And it also goes further to say that if anybody that is found guilty of any other offense apart from the sexual, apart from the penetrative sex, then this also, the person is liable to 14 years imprisonment if found guilty. So depending on what the offense is actually, so at least the person could get as high as 14 years imprisonment, and the person could get as low, 6 months, 2 months, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, depending on how the judge sees the case. So, based on that, this section has been able to cover that the Child Right Act is not only looking at sexual intercourse between with a child, but it's also looking at other forms of sexual exploitation and other sexual abuse that which somebody may have engaged a child in. So thank you very much. I hope this has been helpful. I want to implore you to please subscribe to the channel and follow, join our Facebook group so that you can always get this content as it drops. Thank you very much for your participation. I hope to see you again tomorrow. Bye.